Welcome to Sip No Tech. I'm Alex. How you doing? Moto G4 review right now. Lots to talk about, so let's jump right into it. The first thing we need to talk about is also something that makes this phone unique, and that is the inclusion of Amazon ads on the lock screen. Lenovo was able to offer Moto G4 at a discounted price in exchange for ads provided by Amazon on the lock screen, and lock screen only, so this only appears on the lock screen. This may bug some users, but it really hasn't distracted me with my time with the device. It is interesting to note, however, that Amazon offers use about 99 megabytes of your data, so that is something you need to consider if you're limited on data. Jumping into the specs of the phone, we are looking at a mid-range Snapdragon 617 chipset, an Adreno 405 GPU with 2GB of RAM and 16GB of storage. And like previous Moto Gs, the backplate is removable and interchangeable, hiding the non-removable 3000 mAh battery, a micro SD card slot, and a nano SIM tray. If you look at the About Phone settings, we have a couple of different categories that you rarely see on Android devices. The software variant and the channel for this particular model reads AMZ for Amazon, and it is running on Android Marshmallow 6.0.1. For a majority of the software, we are working with a near-stock experience that should be very familiar to Motorola users of previous generations. Moto phones have been praised in the past for keeping Android rather clean, and also including useful minor additions such as the twist-to-open camera and the flashlight chop. The display is also one of those things that Lenovo is trying to use as a selling point. For a $150 phone, you'd be hard-pressed to find a full HD screen. The Moto G4 gives that to you in the form of a 5.5-inch IPS panel good for 401 pixels per inch. This is actually a pretty solid display with acceptable viewing angles. I did feel, however, that the colors were a little bit too cool over what I would like them to be, but that is more of a personal preference. This 1080p display is without a doubt a major win for this phone for just being a 1080p display. Build quality is acceptable as well. This doesn't feel like a dirt cheap phone at all. Previous Moto Gs and Es have felt like toys due to their plastic bodies, and while the G4 is still plastic with a textured back, there is a noticeable heft to the device. The phone does feel very solid to hold, and never once did I feel the threat of having it slip from my hands like a lot of other phones in 2016 that I've used. Now, performance is where we need to have a real talk. The 617 holds up fine for the most part, and at times I forget that we aren't using a flagship, as the G4 flies through simple navigation of Android and Chrome browsing. Other times I just want to pop that SIM out and throw it back into my daily driver. The problem here is that, like previous phones that use the 617 chipset, this chipset has its limitations when paired with 2GB of RAM. Yes, you can play games and they run smoothly for a time, but prolonged use gives the G4 difficulties. I've had to set down the phone for playing games for only about 10 to 15 minutes because the phone was just uncomfortable to hold due to it warming up. I've also had games and apps crash because there were too many apps running in the background, which, to be honest, 5 to 7 isn't too many apps. Recent apps need to be relaunched within a matter of seconds, and while Android has never been a good manager of recent apps, recent flagships have made headway using more RAM. 2GB of RAM reaffirms the fact that this is still a lower end to mid-tier phone regardless of how forgiving we are based on the price. One aspect of the G4 that did perform better than many flagships I've used this year was the battery life. I was getting around 3.5 to 4 hours of screen on time when not having Pokemon Go on non-stop, that is. It lasted the whole workday. Color me impressed, as I'm a big complainer when it comes to battery life, and this phone's 3000 mAh battery didn't disappoint me. Also, I wanted to note that the G4 ships with Motorola's turbocharger, which they used to sell separately when I had the Moto X 2014 as my daily driver. And lastly, the camera performance. Motorola has never been known to produce quality cameras on their phones regardless of tiers. I wasn't expecting much, but was actually pleasantly surprised that the cameras on the G4 were pretty decent. The interface is very easy to use, much like previous editions, and pictures were of acceptable quality. I absolutely dreaded snapping anything on my Moto X 2014. I can honestly, however, say that the G4 was very usable. Pictures on auto mode focused rather quickly and appeared sharp and detailed. At only 13 megapixels, you don't have much leeway, but macro shots did look pretty good to me. The 5 megapixel front camera is nothing to write home about, but also nothing to be ashamed of. Just decent, acceptable performance, which, when you consider the price point and where Motorola was just a couple short years ago in the camera department, it is a huge improvement. So, final thoughts on the Moto G4. This is a pretty decent phone. It's a pretty average phone. It's not the nicest design. It's not the best performing phone. In fact, it's not, it's average. It's an average performing phone. And for the people who are buying this, they're not buying it for the high-end design. They're not buying it for the high-end performance. They're buying it for an average performance. And that's where the selling point is. You are buying an average phone for a very, very low price. For $150, you are getting a Snapdragon 617 with 2 gigabytes of RAM. That is insane. I mean, just a few months ago, 8 months ago, I think the HTC 189 launched with the same processor for $400 to $500, and I mean, to me at least, it had a nicer design, but that's not worth a few $100s more just for the design. It is crazy. It's a crazy world to live in where we can get a Snapdragon 617 with 2 gigabytes of RAM and have it perform this well for $150. It's a great world we're living in right now. It really is. It's for consumers. This is the perfect time to live in unlocked devices right now. But yeah, this is a great average device. If you're looking at this phone, if you're a buyer potentially looking at this phone, you know what you're getting into. You know what this phone is. It's not a premium phone. It's not a flagship phone. You know what you're buying. And for that, this is a great device. And I'm happy to report this is exactly what you were hoping for, exactly what you were expecting. And jump on it. I don't see why you shouldn't jump on this. If you are a high-end phone user, if you are flagship users in the past and you are looking at this, you're not going to experience the greatest thing. It is a downgrade compared to flagships. You will feel slowdowns no matter what anybody says. The specs, at the end of the day, do matter to a point. I've noticed recent apps having to restart because of the lower gigabytes of RAM, and it slows down. It heats up a little bit more than some of the flagship phones in 2016. So definitely you will see a difference. So flagship to this, you might notice a difference, but if you're upgrading from other mid-tier phones from previous years, like the Moto G or the Moto E or other phones like that, like the Zenfone 2, this is a very capable device. And you also have the Moto G4 Plus to look at if you want additional premium feeling stuff in it, like the fingerprint scanner. So that's a little bit more, but it's still in a nice little ballpark. But yeah, if you are looking at the phone, you know who you are, and I think you will be very satisfied with this phone. But once again, my name is Alex from Hypnotech. Thank you guys so much for subscribing, for commenting, for liking the videos. Yeah, your continued support is awesome. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. It's been a crazy ride. And when we do hit 1,000 subscribers, I am happy to announce Lita and I are going to do a giveaway. So we are doing a giveaway. Be sure to subscribe for that video on how you can win. And we will announce what we are giving away too when we hit 1,000 subscribers. That's going to come up very soon. So once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.